Well, hello and welcome everyone to this webinar, The Bottom Line of Return on Investment, presented by Dr. Jack Phillips. I want to thank you, the Australian Society for Training and Development in Australia, to organize this series of webinars, and thank you, Return on Investment Institute in the US, for giving us this great opportunity to have Jack with us, and also our sponsor today, InSources Education. Today, my name is Javier Amaro. I'm the president of ASTDI, and I will have the pleasure to introduce Jack, our presenter today. And the agenda for today will be a presentation for around 45 minutes around the return on investment concept, and specifically about the return on investment methodology developed by Dr. Jack Phillips. At the end of the presentation, we're going to have space for participants to ask questions, and Jack and myself will try to address any questions. Questions obviously in regards to return on investment methodology will be answered by Jack, and questions directly related to Australian Society of Training and Development I will be more than happy to also answer. I want to take this opportunity to introduce also Australian Society for Training and Development. We are a non-for-profit association that works with professionals in the area of vocational education and training. Basically, we provide training opportunities, networking opportunities, and we work as a communication channel between different stakeholders in our industry. At a local level in Australia, we work with the industry skills councils, industry training advisory bodies, and different government departments such as the Department of Industry and ASTDI. Our aim is to ensure that the communication flows freely, and all stakeholders understands the standards and the rules of the game. And a more global perspective, we work very close with the American Society for Training and Development, recently renamed to Australian Talent, Talent Development Association for Talent Development, um, to ensure that any new trends and technologies and knowledge that is developed around the world, it is accessible for Australian practitioners. So I invite you to visit our website, astdi.com.au, and be part of our community, and because there is a place in our community for all of you. Okay, it's time to introduce Dr. Jack Phillips. Dr. Jack Phillips is a worldwide expert on accountability measurements and evaluation. Dr. Jack Phillips provides consulting services for Fortune 500 companies and major global organizations. He has been the author or the editor for more than 50 books, and conducts training and speaks as a keynote speaker in conferences throughout the world. Dr. Jack Phillips actually developed the return on investment methodology a few years ago, and since then that's been a revolutionary process that provides bottom line figures and accountability for all types of learning, performance improvement, human resource, technology, and policy programs. This return on investment methodology, it is a great tool that training and human resources practitioners can use to be accountable for the benefits that we produce in the industry. It is a great tool to measure how much is that impact, and the interesting thing is that this tool will allow us to measure that in a money value. But without more introductions, I'll want to say thank you again to Jack, and Jack, it's over to you.
I guess the first question is, did everyone print out a copy of this workbook? We've got some exercises there. Do we have a way of capturing that information if we can?
Yeah. Can you raise your hand if you have a printout, the handouts, please? Well, you guys are really quick at raising hands. Thank you. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, we got everyone basically with the printout. Jack, we can go ahead.
Okay. All right. So this is just the setup, and this is what we want to cover. We think this is something that you will see as relevant, and it's something that can apply immediately. And we just want to quickly look at the drivers of ROI and describe these 5 levels in a little more detail. Maybe a little bit of myths about ROI and the 10 steps, and that's the logic model, and some of the payoffs that we see there in the process, or that I should say our clients see. And I'd like to go to the next page, if you could.
Yes, Francisco?
Okay, yeah, there we go. Just a couple of points here. When we think about the value for many of our programs, it's really shifted in recent years. We used to focus it on counting people that's in the program and maybe some reaction data from those participants, and maybe occasionally collecting some data about their use. That's a pretty narrow definition of what's needed. It needs to be balanced with qualitative and quantitative. Even an option to go to financial, that's when the ROI comes in, as well as non-financial. Sometimes we're working on strategic issues, and sometimes it's tactical. For example, we may be working on reducing the time to do something, which is certainly a very tactical issue, and other times we may be tackling things like a strategic objective to increase customer satisfaction. All the stakeholders have to be satisfied that this moves us beyond the participant and beyond the facilitator or the organizer of the program, beyond the keyboard, and it takes us to the application on the job, and that brings in the manager of the participant, and it brings in the sponsor of the program, and they need to have data that they appreciate. It needs to be consistent from one project to another, conservative in the standards, so that any assumptions we make are very conservative, almost like the worst case scenarios. And it must come from credible sources. And that's to make sure it's very credible with the executives that we have to work with. The show me evolution that we've pointed out here is this something that's evolved over a period of time. When we ask for money for a project, there's a request these days to show me the money. And it started with show me the impact and moved to show me the money, and then what we call show me the real money. That is to isolate the effects of what we do from other influences. For example, if you have a sales training program and you drive the sales from the participants, their sales increase, we know there are many other factors that could have caused that. So we have to take a step to always sort out the effects of our program. And then that gets us to the ultimate accountability. Show me the money and make me believe it's a good investment, and that's the ROI. So what we're suggesting here is that this has changed over a period of time. Really got kicked in with the recession, and now executives sometimes even said, would you mind showing me the ROI on this even before you do it? And it's amazing at different countries and what's going on with the sponsors, the key funders of projects. And this leads us to these definitions, and that's on the bottom of your page there. And that's the 6 types of data that we want to collect: reaction from our program, learning, application, impact, ROI. Those are 5 levels. And then we have intangibles, which are really business impact data not converted to money. So it won't be in the calculation of ROI. Still very important. And then we note that it has a technique always to isolate the effects of our program. So that gets the definition in place. So if we go to the next slide, let's look at some data, if you could. So the next page. There you go. Now, here's some data we collected from top executives in the States. And I'd like to have you think about, would you see the same set of data if you ran the same study in Australia? First, this is the top executives of Fortune 500 companies. If you can imagine, it was very difficult to get to them, but we did. We've got 96 of them to give us some data. And basically, we put these 8 sets of data in front of them, and they're covered in our categories that we just covered a few minutes ago. Now, let's take the first 2. That's inputs and efficiency. That's what we used to measure so much of, and we call that actually level 0 in our framework. That's what goes in. It's not an outcome measure, but we put it there because it's been reported to executives so much that they're used to this and sometimes even expect it. And then you can see number 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are the 5 levels that we described, and number 8 is an intangible. Now, here's the questions we ask these executives. Are you currently measuring or seeing this data? Do you measure this now? And look, you can see those percentages. And they taper off quickly when you go up those levels. And then we ask, should you be measuring this in the future? And you can see some gaps emerging here. Let me bring your attention to number 3, which is reaction. That's level 1 in our system. 53% wanted to see this. 22%, excuse me, it's 53% have it now. 22% wanted it. So there's a gap in the other direction. They don't really want it. Learning, not much different. 32% said we see this kind of data now, but only 28% said they want it. Now we see a gap emerging there at level 3, and that's application. That's measuring what they're doing with what they've learned. And 11% said we see this kind of data now. 61% said we'd like to. And now the big gap is next. 8% says we're getting impact data, that is connecting learning to the business. 96% wanted to see that. What a huge gap there. And then look, ROI. 4% said we see data on ROI now. 74% said we'd like to see that. And then we threw in this intangible just to get their response. This is an award from the association, much like you do there at ASTDI in Australia. 40% says we see this data now, and slightly more than that wanted to see it. Now, my question to you is, do you see any surprises here? Number 1. And number 2 is, do you think this would be the same in Australia? And those are more for reflecting. And I'd like to give you the rest of the story there. That's the, how did they rank them? And that's some interesting. So let's think for a minute. Which of these data sets do you think was ranked as least important to them? Now, we asked them to rank these data sets on a scale of 1 to 8, where 1 is the most important to them, and 8 is least important. So what do you think? Which one do you think is least important? Could we see, can you pop a number in there? 1 to 8 here. Which one do you think is least important with this group?
If you can please type the answer 1 to 8 in the questions section, I'll be able to read it for Dr. Philip.
Yeah, and so which one do you think is least important in the minds of these top executives of these large organizations?
Well, we got different opinions, Jack. many of them, they think the least important is number 3. That's a majority.
Right.
And then we have someone who says number 1 and number 8.
Yeah, number 8. Okay. Now, interesting. Executive says number 3 is their least important. Um, and in our listing, number 1 and 2 was actually 6 and 7, so it's pretty close. And then the awards, number 8 on this list, the number 8 item was actually 5th on their list. So they put awards a little higher than we anticipated. I'm sorry, awards were 3, not 5, but the number 3 on the list. So that's higher than we expected. Now, let's go to which one do you think is most important to these executives? Which number of 1 to 8 do you think is most important to the executives, most valuable to them?
Okay, we got some answers coming, and it's all around number 6 and 7.
Yeah, that's turned out to be 1 and 2 for them. And of course, this mirrors the percentages quite well from what they want to see. Now, number 1 was impact, and number 2 was ROI. And you see those huge gaps there. So this is a little bit of an eye-opener for people in this field, although they would expect these kinds of rankings. The surprises were how big the gaps were. The surprises are the fact that they really want to see level 1 and 2. Number 1 and 2, which are the inputs and the efficiency. That's how many people and the cost, essentially. They want to see that because that's the scope of what they're doing. That defines a budget, so they want to see that. But level 1 and 2, which is 3 and 4 on this list, are really considered operational measures in their mind, and not something that they need to even see or be reported to them. But they really get some attention at level 3, 4, and 5. The awards were a little puzzle, but the rationale that we could see is that we don't provide them the kind of data that they really want to see. Maybe if you get an award from an industry association, that's indication that you're doing quite well, because they don't see it themselves. That's a little bit cynical, but that view came from CLO magazine when they looked at our data. That was their explanation for the awards. So the conclusion here, and we want to, through Javier, there to do this same survey in Australia just to see how this comes out. There's a few more questions to this, and I'd invite you to our website if you want to see more detail on this study. It's the executive survey. It's got much more detail and some other issues as well. So let's move from here to the next page, and let's look at a rational way to look at this. You can see executives want to see impact, but not for every program. ROI, they want to see that, but certainly not for every program. Let's look at what's feasible with the resources that we can probably obtain. And so on this page, page 3, we give some percentages. We put a current status as the percent of programs that we think are being measured at this level now globally. And I'd like for you to think about all the programs you have in your arsenal of learning and development programs, and think about what percent are measured at each of these levels each year. And then we have a goal in 5 years. And it doesn't mean it takes you 5 years to get to that number, but that 5 years is our magic number for best practice. If an organization is using this for 5 years or more, we collect that data to see what percentages. So this is roughly what they tell us. Over on the right side in this page, we've got the latest benchmarking. And you can see some interesting issues here. We start off quite high. We want to measure 100% at level 0. That's the inputs. We've got to do that. Pretty high at level 1. We'd suggest 100%, something close to that. Benchmarking is a little bit short of that. A lot of organizations would say, look, we just sample this when it's the same program, same types of participants, same content. We don't want to keep measuring that. I understand that. Learning, we want a very high percentage there, and you probably have that. If you're in technical areas, that number is usually quite high, 80 to 90%. Then it drops off, and it needs to drop off. Application, we suggest 30% of the programs each year measured at that level. 10% is where we think we are now. So if you just think about, this is where you begin to look at how serious you are about learning and development, accountability. If you don't go to level 3, application, you have no data to show to executives that we make a difference. And so we've got to push it to that level. This is why we would suggest 30%. You can see the benchmarking there is slightly above that. Now, business impact, 10% usually will get us where we need to be. This is 10% every year. If you had 100 programs, that's 10 impact studies showing the connection to the business. Now, we're not suggesting only 10% of our programs should be connected to the business. We think all of them should, but we want to take that extra step to connect it to the business by isolating the effects of our program on that data so we can see how much we've actually influenced it. So that's why we had 10%. You see benchmarking is a little bit better than that, 14.4. And finally, a 5% for level 5. And that's half of those impacts evaluations going up to level 5. And what we do there is basically could then take the impact data, convert it to money, compare it to the cost of the program to get to the financial ROI. We'll be talking about how that's done. But I just wanted to give you the sensible profile. And sometimes people will ask, why shouldn't we do more? I think it's a matter of resources. This is for the higher level, and it's really not that much of a necessity. If you have a lot of programs that are short duration, they're e-learning, they are compliance programs, you're teaching people how to do their jobs, there's no executive who's going to demand an ROI study on that. So this would usually get us where we need to be. Let's go to the next page, and we just want to just quickly show you the types of measures we are suggesting at each level. So as we look at the next page, you can see we've arranged it by different levels. If we can get that moved to the next page.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Francisco?
Let's go to page 4. Yes, and that's, again, this is for your reference primarily, but just a couple of points. We look at common measures at each level. At level 1, I just want to point out that's our most measured level now. That's gets a bum rap, we think, because we call them smile sheets and happy sheets and happiness ratings. But we can do better if we use content-related questions, and we suggest that in a given feedback questionnaire, we'd have 80% of those questions to be content-focused and 20% experience. We find it often the other way. These are all content questions. The ones with an asterisk are those that often correlate with application. That is, you get a correlation between the measures of, is it relevant to my program? Is it important to my success? Is it new information? Do I intend to use it? And I'd add another one, would you recommend it to others? Collectively, those 5 will correlate with application. If you look at application, we're usually coordinating that with the use of the knowledge or use of the skills. At level 3, key things would be extent of use, frequency of use, success with use, and then barriers and enablers. Those are 5 key measures that are important. For impact, it's all over the map. It's whatever we're driving. The impact measures are those measures in the system already. It's already monitored and reported in the different units and business sections and even government units. That's the most important data set to monitor according to the executives. It is our least measured one, unfortunately. And then, of course, ROI can be calculated and presented either as a percent, a benefit cost ratio, or payback period. So now let's go to the next page, and just quickly want to run through some documents here to give you a sense of the issues a little more. So if we go to page 5, you can see the different elements at the top that make this work. It's got a framework that's the types of data, the 5 levels, a process model. We're going to show you that logic step-by-step process. His standards. The standards are on a document here. We'll just quickly go through them, not spend much time on them. And then application. We make a claim that no one has been able to refute, and the claim is this, that this is the most used evaluation system in the world. We know that 4,000 people of certified ROI professionals are using this because they had to do a study to become a certified ROI professional, the designation from our institute. But we have even more than that using it. So it is a very user-friendly process, but it all comes together and is used and sustained by implementation. That is, working through issues of providing appropriate resources, assigning responsibilities, deciding which programs to evaluate, and how we report data and use that data. So all of those elements, there's 5 of them, that come together to make a very credible evaluation system. And remember, the data flows on a chain of impact that you see in the middle here. And this is a good, helpful framework to put in front of executives, reminding them that if you want to get to impact where they want to be, we got to have things taken care of at the lower levels. If you don't have the right reaction, it's going to break down. And sometimes that means they don't send the right people there. Our learning. We need them to help support learning. Without the learning, it all dies. Level 3 is where it normally breaks down, and that's the application. They just don't use, don't do, don't apply. And this is where executives, and particularly the managers or participants, can make the big difference by reinforcing it at that level. Application, reinforcing the application and making sure that they help and them do it and require it as well. And then when you get to impact and ROI, that's the key. You can have positive impact but a negative ROI if your costs are too high. So this is why we bring in ROI as a 5th level. It's the only level that really brings in the cost of the program. Now at the bottom of the page, just quickly, some of the reasons why we select a program for level 4 and level 5 evaluation. You can see number 1 is that it's expensive. The most expensive program usually a good candidate for this. That's on a per person basis or maybe a total expenditure. By the way, these are post-program numbers, I mean post-recession numbers. So this has changed a little bit since the recession, but expensive programs drive this. Also, connecting it to strategy drives it. If it's important enough for that, it's important enough to push it to this level. And it's also, you can see the executive interest. That used to be the number 1. It's very close. Excuse me, it's number 3 now. So those are some reasons. As we go to the next page, go to page 6. I just want to leave you with those are the reasons why we select projects up to this level of analysis. We want to be careful not to use too many resources when we don't have to. The methodology, the steps, the 10 steps are these. This is a systematic, logical flow of the data as you move from setting objectives to planning the study to collecting data to analyzing the data and reporting the results. We'll walk through some parts of that. It's a very straightforward process. I would like to go to the next page where we focus on the standards. The next page lists the 12 guiding principles. So if we go to page 7 now, you see on the left side of those rules. We don't have time to cover those now, but if you look at those, you can begin to see they're really taking the air out of our process. They're looking at worst case scenarios. They're being ultra conservative, and this is for the executives, particularly the finance and accounting team that often looks over our shoulders on these kind of projects. So those are our standards that give us the guidance that we need. And you remember on the model itself, it started with objectives. And so I'd like to take you to the next page, and let's look at a little exercise here to get you involved in it. So we'll go to page 8. Page 8 has a list of some objectives. I'd like to take the first 10 just to practice something here.
We got a pool of questions for that. Jack, you wanna show them the first one?
Yes, let's just walk through these. What we do, we have objectives, and we have these levels of evaluation. So we'd like to ask the question: if we collect data to see if we met that objective, at what level are we evaluating? Is it reaction? Is it learning? Is it application? Is it impact? Is it ROI? Remember, application is actually doing something, and impact is a consequence of that. The impact is always things like output, quality, cost, and time. So if we've got some polling questions, what do we?
Yes, Francisco, can you send the first one, please?
Yeah, let's set the first one up and see what we can do here. And we've got the complete objective. It starts with, after completing this program, participants should improve work group productivity by 20%. If we collected data to see if we met that objective, at what level are we evaluating? So just check the one you think we're evaluating. If we collect data to see if we met that objective, are we evaluating at level 1, reaction, level 2, learning, level 3, application, level 4, impact, level 5, ROI? So let's go ahead and make your selection. Okay, well,
congratulations, guys. You really quick in responding. We got a bit of discrepancy here, Jack. 40% of the responses says level 3, and 60% of the responses says level 4.
Yeah, we'll go with 4. Productivity is defined by its output divided by hour, or output divided by people. So it's an output measure. It's a consequence. It's an impact. A level 3 is going to be, I'm doing something like following a procedure, using a skill set, using technology. So we'll go with level 4 there. Let's go to the next one. After completing this program, participants should initiate at least 3 cost reduction projects in 15 days. That's like from a Lean Six Sigma program. After completing this program, participants should initiate at least 3 cost reduction projects in 15 days. If we collect data to see if we met that, what is our level? Is it reaction, learning, application, impact, ROI?
Okay, people are voting now. Looks like we all agree at the moment, and at level 3.
3, that's it. So you can see we're just doing something. We're getting those projects initiated. Nothing has happened yet. Let's go to the next one. This one's a related objective from the same program. After completing this project, after completing this program, participants should achieve an average cost reduction of $20,000 per project. Is that level 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? So if you select that one, please, quickly.
Yeah, we have in here, again, different opinion. Quite interesting, this one. 17% says level 3, 17% says level 4, and the majority, 67%, says level 5.
Okay, so it's actually level 4. It's not 5 yet. 5 is a comparison of the monetary benefits of the program to the cost, and would it be expressed as a percentage, ROI, calculation as a percent, or benefit cost ratio, or a payback period. How long would it take to get the money back? That would bring in the cost of our particular program. So as it stands, it's an impact measure already converted to money. That's the beauty of this one. Let's go to the next one. After completing this program, participants should use counseling discussion skills in 90% of situations where work habits are unacceptable. So is that reaction, learning, application, impact, ROI?
Okay. Interesting answers, Jack. At the moment, we've got an 80-20. 80% think is level 3, that's a response, and 20% level 2. That is changing now. We go 14% level 2, 86% level 3.
All right, we go with level 3. It's doing something. So you'd have to follow that on the job. So after completing the program, participants should use, the keyword is use, the counseling skills. And so to know that, you got to go to the job. Let's quickly go through a couple more. How about number 5?
Yeah, sure.
After completing this program, participants should achieve a 2-to-1 benefit cost ratio 1 year after the new performance management system is implemented. Well, I know we'd like to have that kind of payoff. So is that reaction, learning, application, impact, ROI?
Okay. People still
predicting
voting.
100% correct on this one.
And you are right. We got 100% agreement at level 5.
Right. Benefit cost ratio is one way to express that. Again, ROI as a percent is another way. And payback period is even another. See, there's a connection here. 2-to-1 benefit cost ratio is actually 100% ROI. That means we get and we invest money, we get our money back plus another Australian dollar for every dollar we invest. So that's quite a high ROI. Let's go to another one. After completing this program, participants should be able to describe the 4 elements of the employee assistance program. At what level is this? If we collect data to see if we met the objective, is it reaction, learning, application, impact, and ROI?
Okay, people still voting. So far, we got an agreement at level 2. People continue voting. And I think we got someone that now said we got 2 people level 3 and the rest are level 4. Level 2, sorry. 86% level 2, 14% level 3.
Yeah, it's level 2. It's learning. It's be able to. That's the key words there. Be able to describe. You can see that would be like a simple test or quiz or something there in the session itself when we announce the employee assistance program. So we'll stop there. What I'd like to do is just quickly give you the answers to the others so you can check them in your own thinking. So I'll quickly run through these. For number 7, it's 4. Number 8 is 3. Number 9 is 4. Number 10 is 2. Number 11 is 3. Number 12 is 1. Number 13 is 4. And number 14 is 3. Number 15 is 1. Number 16 is 3. Number 17, 4. Number 18, 2. Number 19, 3. And the number 20, also 3. Just for your checking when you're lonesome and bored sometime at night. I would like to go to the next page and just remind us where these objectives come from. You see, to actually evaluate it at level 4, you're going to need level 4 objectives. And to evaluate it at level 3, you're going to need level 3 objectives. And these come from a little more detail up front in the needs assessment. This is a V model. It shows the alignment here and the alignment with the objectives. So basically, we're showing the connection between needs assessment on the left side, evaluation on the right side, and the transition are those levels. But the project should start at the top and move down in the needs assessment through the project. That's the design, development, and delivery of the project. And then we capture data in a sequential chain of impact from reaction, learning, application, impact, and ROI. It's more than I can cover here, but this is a great way to think about the connection. We've got an example on the next page. If we go to page 10, just quickly, we show you an example from a call center where there's absenteeism that's actually being corrected by counseling workshop. Talk to the managers so they can work with their employees to try to improve absenteeism. But you can work through this and see how this connects. It's just a good way to look at where do we get the objectives and the levels, which are so critical. The levels now become more than levels of evaluation. They have levels of objectives and levels of needs assessment, and they have to line up. We can send you more information around this if you'd like, but it's a handy way to look at this. We find executives can look at this and map this in and understand it quite clearly. If we're trying to get their buy-in to what we're doing, trying to get more dialogue with them to get that connection up front, we're trying to move from just requesting a solution to understanding the need for that solution and connecting that solution properly to a business impact. That's the key. Now, I would like to hit a couple of high spots here. Let's go to the next page, page 11. And it's a section on data collection. Just wanted to show you, as you move through this 10 steps that we have described, you have objectives and planning, and then you've got data collection at the 4 levels. So if you look at page 11 now, if we move it to page 11, and we can see those methods of data collection. I mapped this into the typical techniques of data collection. So you're probably familiar with most of these. Action planning, maybe not so much, but it's where they plan actions in the session and then complete those actions later in the job. That could be at level 3 and 4, pushing it up to the impact level. Performance contracting is setting those levels. It's like an action plan with a pre-programmed commitment with the boss. So you made a contract for performance improvement. So nothing probably new to you here, but we're just trying to show you what's typically used, particularly at level 3 and 4. That's where the critical use is. Then for isolating the effects of our program, that's sorting out the effects of the program from other influences. You can see the classic techniques there listed. We always do this. That's one of our standards. It's one of the guiding principles. It's number 5 on that list of 12 that we looked at. So this is a step that we must do. And you can see at the bottom of the page, this is some benchmarking that says, what are they doing now? We're mapping these into these techniques. So the one we like best, obviously, is what we call a control group. That's experimental versus control. This is where one group gets the program, another does not, and we compare those two. You can see 32% are using that method now. The next one's a little simple trend line, which is so easy to do. If it holds up, we use it. 29% of the time, it's working, best practice. I'll pop over to the big bar, and that's 55% are using estimates from participants. And we don't like to do that, but when we do, we want to make sure we collect it from the most credible people, and collect it in a non-threatening, unbiased way, and adjust for the error. That's one of the standards. Guiding principle number 7 says we will always adjust for the error of the estimate when we're taking estimates. So all of this is to try to make it credible. We always take this step to make sure it's credible. If we have to use estimate, not our best method, we have to work with it to make it credible. That's our approach. Now I'd like to go to the next page, if you go to page 13 very quickly, you can see another couple of items here. One of those is converting data to money. The good news is if it's a data item that's important, like some kind of productivity, sales, waste, rework, mistakes, cycle times, process times, those are important measures. Even things like absenteeism, turnover, and accidents and grievances. The good news is that someone more than likely has put a monetary value on those, and so it's a matter of trying to find them. Sometimes it's the standard value for output, quality, or time. For employee time, it's the salary of the time if it's that time is used in other productive work. Or we could calculate it itself using historical cost. We can go to experts internally, like the department that deals with it. We can go to databases. We can link to other measures. We look at participants' estimates, managers' estimates. We've got different ways of doing this. If we can do it, we do it. If we cannot, we leave it as an intangible. Our discipline is to try to always do this with minimum resources. If we cannot do it with minimum resources, credibly, we leave it as an intangible. At the bottom of the page, I should say at the top, that gets us the money benefits. The bottom of the page is the cost of the program. We put all of the costs, fully loaded costs, direct and indirect. So even when we take people off the job to attend programs, we're going to put the salaries for that time that they lost. There are other ways to account for that, but that's the easiest and probably most accurate. So that gets us the cost. But let's don't forget on the next page, if we go to the next page, we've got our intangibles that come out of this. These are the ones that couldn't convert to money. But when it can convert to money, we got monetary benefits and we've got cost. And this is the two calculations. Let's look at these, and I'd like for us to calculate this. You can see the benefit cost ratio is just the benefits divided by cost. And then the ROI is net benefits, and that's benefits minus the cost divided by cost times 100 to get to ROI. These two are related, you can see. I'd like for us to do a calculation. You got if we have the benefits of 500,000, cost of 400, what's the ROI? Remember, it's net benefits is benefits minus the cost divided by the costs times 100. Could we calculate that and give us an answer? What is the ROI when you've got a cost of 500,000, of benefits of 400,000? Plug that into the ROI calculation and see what you have.
If you can answer in the questions and answers, we can share that. So we got a very quick answer already, and okay, Jack, we got different answers. One of our participants is talking about 25%. It's another one saying 1.25.
Okay, now let's take those two. The answer is 25%. Now 1.25 is the benefit cost ratio. That's when you divide 500,000 by 400,000. So it would be 1.25 to 1 benefit cost ratio, which is saying that for every $1 we invest, we get 1.25 in benefits. Now, the ROI is there's a shortcut way and a long way. The long way is to take 500,000 minus the 400,000, that's 100,000, divided by the 500,000. I'm sorry, divided by the 400,000. That's the cost. So it's 500 minus 400, which is 100, divided by 400,000. That's 0.25 times 100. That's 25%. But you can see a mathematical connection. You take the benefit cost ratio, 1.25, minus the number 1 times 100. So 1.25 minus 1 is 0.25 times 100, and that's 25%. So we make this point because benefit cost ratio has its origins in the government. We trace it back to the 2nd century AD. Governments use benefit cost analysis all the time. The ROI is a business term, and it's had its origins in Europe in the 1800s as a business tool. And so now it's used all over the world. It's a standard, and it's been a standard now for close to 100 years in the States, for example, in finance and accounting. And in any country, the finance and accounting, it's a standard now. So we just wanted to take you through that. I would like to look at the next page. I'm going to go quickly to just a couple of summary items and leave time for questions. In the middle of the page are something about the programs that yield the highest ROI. It is not unusual to see high ROIs for those kind of programs. That's good news. Those programs, for the most part, have leverage, particularly those involving managers, and they can generate high ROI. So that's good news. So if we can show these kind of values to our executives, we really have a leg up. This is the kind of data that they're not used to seeing, but they love it if it's credible. Now, we see in our studies, we get to see probably 500 studies a year through the Institute, and most studies are positive, just a little over 50%, which means that almost 50% are negative. But when a study is negative, doesn't mean you kill it, you improve it. So only about 10% of those negative studies were actually discontinued. So ROI is not a tool to kill programs, as some people think. ROI is a tool to keep your program from being killed. I think that's another better way to look at it. And the payoffs, you can see at the bottom of this page. That's what our clients are reporting they're getting out of this. It aligns programs with the business. It shows the contribution. You build respect with the team, particularly our senior managers. Build morale of the staff. I used to do this, started doing this years ago as a learning manager, and it just made us all feel good that we knew we connected to the business. And building support, making processes better, and removing or redesigning one that's not working, using it to decide if we should put it out to other sections, and it hopefully help earn us a seat at the table. So let's just stop there and see if we have questions. I think that kind of gives you an overview of the process and what's involved in it. Do we have questions at this point?
Yes, thanks, Jack. If you have a question, if you want just to type in the question area, or alternative, you can raise your hand and we're happy to give you the microphone to ask your question orally. At the moment, there is not, I can't find, we haven't received. Yes, we got one question here. It says, can you remind me how you work out the dollar figure for program benefits?
Okay, if we go back to page 13, just go back a couple of pages. At the top of the page, this is how we get it to money. There's a lot of things are standard values. Let's give an example, but maybe 3 or 4. If you were driving sales, that's in money already, but it's not usable money yet. We have to get the profit of the sale. That would be a standard value. If we have reworked that has to be done, someone's probably calculated that, and the production managers would know, or someone in quality would know. That's a value of that already calculated. If we save someone's time, that is, I teach you how to do something quicker, and you use that time on other productive work, we're going to put the time savings there, which would be a monetary value, which is your hourly rate. Accidents, we know the cost of a lost time accident. We find that from the safety and health. Employee turnover, we get that from HR or go to an external database. So the good thing is that we don't have to calculate this so much. Things are already there. If it's a measure that matters, in an organization, someone has probably already connected it to money. That's the good news. So our discipline is to try to always get to that value. But if we cannot do it, we leave it as an intangible. For example, someone recently was trying to find a value for stress, and in their organization they couldn't do it credibly, and they left it stress reduction as a benefit, intangible benefit, not in the ROI calculation. I have to say, we've seen stress calculated into money. We've got a case study that's done that. So it can be done. In fact, any measure you can think of is probably being converted to money by someone. It's just a matter of trying to find it. But we want to make sure it's credible. So we always put the words credible with a reasonable amount of effort to in that conversion for us to follow through and make it work. So that's the short answer to that question.
Jack, we got another question from Robin here. It says, well, thank you, Jack. Fascinating your presentation. Are you coming to Australia to deliver the full course?
Well, yes. We are. You've got a couple of 2-day workshops that you're organizing there first in October and November, I believe. And then next June the 15th, we plan a 5-day certification there in Australia. You might tell them more about that, but you certainly would have more information about that. We've conducted this certification in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra previously. So we've got a number of certified ROI professionals already in Australia. But we're pleased to have a new partner here who will make sure that we make it work there in a consistent, systematic way.
Yeah, I just wanted to show the dates. We do have the 2-day workshop program that is being designed by Jack. The next one coming is actually next month on the 23rd of October here in Sydney, in North Sydney, and later on in November in Melbourne. Then we're going to have the 5-day workshop certification program in Sydney next year, the 15th of June. That will be conducted by Jack. I'm not sure if you wanted to describe a little bit more what is covered in the 2-day workshops, what is covered in the 5-day, Jack.
Yes, on the 2-day, if you're not sure that you really want to do this, but you think you are, I'd cover the 2-day, and that in the 2-day you learn some of the skill sets here. You learn how to set the objectives that we talked about. You learn about the alignment that we discussed, how to collect data, right on through the 4 levels, and you could probably do a simple ROI study. It's designed really to get you to change a lot of the practices you have to make your programs more results focused. The 5-day gets a little deeper into these issues, and it all revolves around a project that we want you to evaluate. So you bring your own project, a program that you need to push up to the ROI level. You bring that, and you will do the detailed planning for that study and review the plan with the team and leave there with your detailed plan of conducting the study. And we stay with you on Microsoft SharePoint website until you complete the project, and that's when you earn the designation of Certified ROI Professional. This is where people get really serious about this. They really want to build this capability to do it. If you're not quite ready yet, go to the 2 days and see what you think. What happens is about 30 to 40% of the people go to the 2-day, continue on for the 5-day. And that's probably what we'll see coming out of that.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Jack. We'll continue with the questions and answers. If you got another question that you want to type in that section, or again, raise your hand, we'll give you the microphone. We've got comments saying thank you, no specific questions. All good.
And
Great sessions. Thank you. There is another question. I think it says I need. Well, no, very interesting presentations, or just compliments to your presentation, Jack.
well, thank you. Now we could send someone a case study if they're interested. Some of them on the website, but if you need a case study to see how this works sequentially, we can send it. Just tell us what general area you're interested in, and we can pop that to you. This kind of brings it to life and a real life example. So we'd be happy to do that. And we've got a great partner there in Australia to provide some assistance and support and information as well. So
Thank you.
together we should be able to do that.
Thank you. Excellent. I'll send you a copy of all these questions as well, Jack, so for your records. And if you do have a question later on, just send it to us to our email address, info@astdi.com.au, and we'll try to answer. Otherwise, we'll send it to Jack for him to answer. So thank you, Jack, from
Yes.
ROI Institute, and thank you everyone for participating in this workshop.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being there.
No worries.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good afternoon.